All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Money Down Pod. That is Sean White. This is Kayvon Izami. Follow us on Twitter at Money Down Pod. You can follow my guy Sean at Dumpster Fire Fan. Follow me at Kayvon_sports. Hope everyone had a lovely championship weekend, and we are here to break it all down. Sean, the Bengals run does not end. What a game! What another comeback! And what an implosion by the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I'm not going to lie, man. I've seen a lot of things happen in the NFL, including my own Atlanta Falcons blow a 28-3 lead. But to me, that was more predictable than what we saw happen to the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, the cliche version of that is like a tale of two halves. Like that's what everybody says, tale of two halves. That was like a tale of two quarterbacks, man. Mahomes looked completely different from one half to the next. I don't know if that momentum swing at the end of the first half had anything to do with it, but he was all out of sorts in the second half. Credit to the Bengals D coordinator who hasn't been getting any head coaching love.
No one has brought up his name. Nobody.
Like that's amazing. That's 2 times he's done this to Mahomes now, and that's halftime adjustments on his part. That's insane right there, especially to do that to Mahomes and Andy Reid.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to start off talking about the Bengals right here, and I'm going to let you go in on the Chiefs. I think you're going to have some very good points on the Chiefs, and I'll react off of that. But credit to the Bengals, man, for being some fighters and for putting all the dysfunctional teams in the NFL on their back right now. I think if you're Lions, Jags, Browns fan, well, not the Browns because they're in the same division, Texans, any of these dysfunctional teams, you got to root for the Bengals, man. They've been in the gutter for a while. They've made the playoffs several times, but they never really won a playoff game in the last 31 years. To see them come out there, Joe Burrow in his second year, that's unprecedented. You mentioned it on the show. All credit to you. You never see a team just go out there and start reaching the Super Bowl in year 2. They always have some obstacles. And, man, he overcame all the obstacles in the world to get there. Beating Mahomes like that at the Chiefs, a crazy, crazy good job by the Bengals. Zach Taylor, someone that myself and a lot of other people really get on as a head coach. He really came out and showed his stuff, man. He's definitely proven to be a very good head coaching candidate. It's not like he's being carried by the team or anything out there. He's definitely got some schemes working. He's got it going. Credit to the Bengals, and I think basically all of America is probably cheering for them, the underdog story and everything at this point. But I think, like you said, we've got to talk about the Chiefs' collapse, and I'm going to let you take it from there. I'll react to what you have to say. What a collapse by them, though.
No doubt about it. One of the biggest collapses and most shocking collapses we see. First of all, I completely agree. It's so much credit to the Bengals. It's unprecedented. You do not see what happened to the Bengals. I mean, you just don't see that in this nature of the NFL or any old modern, whatever. Like you don't see what just happened. Credit to the front office for the drafting, everything. It's incredible, and serious big credits to that defense and defensive coordinator for what he did with the adjustments. My thing with the Bengals is this. Look, I mean, you're right, man. I don't know if like Jackson Mahomes stole, his Patrick Mahomes' identity and came out in the second half, and that wasn't Patrick, but that was 2 different quarterbacks, like you said it. And what's the thing that's really sticking with me, Sean, is this. Mahomes is getting a lot of flack, and rightfully so. I mean, he had a terrible game. And the Bengals did that whole thing where they pretty much dropped 8, but they didn't let him get outside. And he just kind of went crazy and was running around like he was in the circus, and it didn't work out. My thing is this, though. Andy Reid deserves, to me, the most flack out of all of them, because we all look at Mahomes, and it happens because when you're so good, you tend to forget. Sean, he's only in his 5th year. Like, he's only this is his 4th year as a starter, and he made the AFC Championship every game. He is still a very young quarterback. He still has time to grow. He still is growing. And the fact that Andy Reid, now twice against the Bengals, has not been able to adjust to their adjustment. And this isn't like the Bengals did. Like, they did a good job, bro. And you love the X's and O's, so you can definitely speak to this. It's not like they did something we've never seen before, bro. All they did was drop 8 in coverage and really just kept him inside the pocket. I like that. It wasn't some mystery or some secret sauce that we've never seen them do before. And Andy Reid did not counter it. And the one way he could have countered it was by running the ball. He didn't even try to run the ball in the second half. And they were having success in the first half running the ball with Mecole Hardman. Those first couple drives, that was all Hardman, man. He was getting 5-6 yards a carry, and they kept it going. They kept it going. And in the second half, it felt like everything just went out of whack. And to what your point about that last play of the first half, I do think that was a big issue, man. I think that threw Mahomes off, that he made that type of mental mistake. And I think that's on Andy Reid as well. Andy Reid should have been in his ear saying, if there is nothing open in the end zone, you throw that damn ball away immediately. The fact that he even looked to Tyreek Hill over there is a massive mistake. It should have been your first read into the end zone, not open, throw it away and kick the field goal. They kicked that field goal, the game's over, because the field goal that they kicked at the end of regulation would have been to win it instead of to tie it, because they would have already been tied. So this is all, again, I'm not taking things away from Mahomes because he deserves blame. He played a terrible second half after he played an almost flawless first half. But we still have to put a lot of, remember that Andy Reid has been a head coach for a long, long time in this league now. The fact that he was not willing or able to adjust to what the Bengals did, it's a big disappointment. And if I'm a Chiefs fan, I am very disappointed with how my coaching staff reacted. And to be honest, man, we've kind of starting to see this a lot with Andy Reid. He's had a lot of talented teams. He's only had one Super Bowl win. It's starting to get to the point where it's like, I don't like, he's a Hall of Fame coach, and I don't want to like throw a hot take that he sucks or anything, but it's getting a little old, man. Like, you have a really good team. You cannot allow that type of defeat on your home field in an AFC championship game. That cannot happen. And it's disappointing that he didn't adjust.
Oh, absolutely. If we're going to go at Aaron Rodgers and the Packers for losing at home like they did, we have to go at Andy Reid and Mahomes for losing at home like they did to an upstart Bengals team. I think what you're saying has a lot of merit, obviously. That I got to put a little more on Mahomes than you, though. I think that's kind of where we're going to differ a little bit. Reid does need to do a better job of running the ball. Whether that is they need to get a running back that he fully trusts more back there. Like he used to have LaShawn McCoy that he seemed to constantly want to give the ball. Even if it wasn't running, he'd throw him screens, which would have helped in this situation as well. I think you got to get him a back that he trusts more. I don't know if he just doesn't have that with Allaire or not. I don't think it's kind of weird. It's a weird situation there. But you're right. He needed to run the ball a ton more. The play at the half, I have to put solely on not solely, but almost fully on Mahomes. You got to know better than that. And nobody's going to know if Andy told him that or not, but I feel like Andy probably did.
That's right. That's a good point. That's a fair point.
The only thing I can really blame Andy for on that, and actually you could blame Andy and the front office for this, really, is it's kind of got to be a fade at that point. Like, you got to throw a dead bullet at the end zone. Like, you can't send Tyreek in the flat. Like, somebody's going to pick up Tyreek Hill. Everyone knows who he is. You got to kind of throw that as a fade. And really where you can put that on the front office is they don't really have a big receiver. They just don't have one of those. Yeah. And I know I make the joke all the time on our draft shows and everything that, Jameson Williams tore his ACL. He's going to bring that 4.2 speed and Kansas City's going to draft him and like that. I think I probably need to flip my focus a little bit and watch them go after a bigger type receiver, because Mecole Hardman actually played well enough to be that guy next to Tyreek. And while you would say, okay, you can flex Kelsey out there. Well, if you flex Kelsey out there, everybody knows he's going to get the fade play. I would almost think the Bengals would go double him out there off the line just because it's 5 seconds left. You're right. That's kind of an all three phases issue, but I mostly blame Mahomes on that, because you just got to either dirt that ball and throw it away and get the field goal, or you got to make that decision a lot quicker and have Tyreek be able to run almost out of bounds. That was just a bad play scenario. As for the second half, that dropping 8 in coverage, man, they did it, but they did it differently. They put that spy on Mahomes, but it was never the same spy. It was never the same one. And that was what was genius about it, because they put Wilson, the middle linebacker, on the spy, and then they dropped Hubbard back there and put him as the spy. Mahomes never really knew where that spy was coming from. And once he once he was not able to break contain with the edges brushing up, because they never overrushed, they'd send the spy at him on the blitz and the O-line would never pick up. It was super smart defensive play. Like I said, that was great.
It was incredible.
Great coordinating by the Bengals defense coordinator there. Amazing work. Mahomes has just got to do better at being patient in those situations. And you're right, Andy's got to scheme up some better play calls for that as well. That's something that I'm sure Andy's going to watch a ton of film on in the off season, and I highly doubt that's ever really going to work against them again. I think Mahomes has got to work on his mechanics too a little bit. I think he's probably going to be more mechanically sound. All in all, though, that's a collapse. If we're, like I said, we're going to roast the Packers, we got to roast them. You can't lose to Joe Burrow and the Bengals in their second year at home in an AFC Championship game, especially not after the first half you put up. You can't blow that lead, and you got to be out there. So they get all the blame in the world, while the Bengals do deserve a ton of credit. Joe Burrow has more ice in his veins than any quarterback at his age I've seen come in, really.
I agree.
I mean, the dude is an ice-cold killer out there.
He is.
Down the way he was. That was such a big drive at the end of half for them, too, after doing absolutely nothing. And he marched them right down the field, scored that 7. With the defense holding, you could see Burrow really get that confidence going. Like, hey, we're going to come out in the second half. We're going to be here. And Burrow's kind of becoming that player where it's like, all right, you really don't want to try him in end of game situations because he's going to come through for you. He's got Chase out there. I mean, we see Cooper Kupp, and we'll talk about him later, but good God, Chase is a monster as well. They did the same coverage that they did to Stephon Diggs and completely locked Diggs down. Chase still had 54 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Amazing work out there. You called the T. Higgins 100-yard game out there, too, because that's what they did with the Gabriel Davis play,
Yeah.
so props to you on that. What a performance by the Bengals, offense, defense, just their fortitude. And one last thing before I pass it right back. Drafting the kicker in the 5th round, I know it gets made fun of a lot, especially if it's like Aguayo where it fails with the Tampa Bay. But he's got as much ice cold water in his veins as Joe Burrow does. Amazing work. He's almost automatic out there. Crazy to think that a kicker and quarterback could just be so ice cold when they step on the field. It's amazing. I love the Bengals right now.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And what's wild about Joe Burrow, and real quick, back to the into the first half. You make a great point about that, and you're probably right. I would hope that Reid did tell him that, and I'm sure Reid did. I really think, man, that was the most deflating part of the game. They got greedy, bro. They got too damn greedy. And at some faults, I don't blame them because they were literally playing backyard football in the first half. I texted you that. I was like, this is easy, bro. They were driving down the field like no other. And then they got greedy. They thought, if we don't score here, it's whatever. We're just going to score anyways in the second half. And it changed everything. If they kick that field goal and go up 14, you're the one with the confidence going into the locker room. You're the one that gets the ball in the second half. That destroyed a lot of stuff. And again, I just don't understand why they didn't run the ball in the second half. Maybe it has more to do with the confidence issue and stuff like that, but that really got the game going. Mecole Hardman came out and set the tone in the first half. Nothing happened. I want to talk about the Bengals as a whole here, man, because Burrow, what's impressive to me about Burrow is it's kind of crazy, man. He's really not having that great of a postseason. Like,
statistically, yeah.
I think he went 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's got a passer rating, I think, of like 97, 98. I don't know. I wrote it down. I can't read 96, I think. Like, he hasn't done that much. I mean, they're literally, and you said it. You said they are winning games by field goals. They're not going to be able to do that in Kansas City. And it looked like you're right, and they weren't. And they did have to score a couple touchdowns. But at the end of the day, it still came down to more field goals. And that's why, to me, the MVP of the postseason so far for their team is the defense. What they are doing on defense in critical moments, the way they shut down the Titans offense, even though it's not some powerful offense, they shut it down. The way they made changes and shut down the Chiefs offense, the way they stopped Derek Carr on that final drive. Burrow, the thing that we have to say about Burrow is when it matters most, Burrow's doing it. Like you said, those 2 rushes that he had in the fourth quarter where he eluded Chris Jones twice, got the first down, and where he ran right up the middle. Burrow gets it done when he needs to get it done. And that's what's so clutch about him. And I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but really, it hasn't been some like Joe Flacco incredible postseason, or what Matt Ryan did when they went to the Super Bowl, or even what Josh Allen did these 2 games before he got eliminated. It's really just been a normal postseason for him. But what's impressive is the whole team has stepped up in a way that we have not seen before. And it just feels like a team that's just like destined, and they're so hot right now, and it's incredible. That to me is the big story, is the way the entire team is playing when Burrow's just played good. Like, he plays good. It's not like he's been like Josh Allen was incredible. Patrick Mahomes until that second half was incredible. And Burrow's just been really good, but he's been amazing in the clutch. And that's the difference, I guess.
Yeah, that's a clutch time player. And let's be honest about this too. If we're going to throw around all this stuff with Brady and him elevating a team, that's kind of what Joe Burrow is doing right now.
It is exactly what
everyone just hangs in the game and knows that, hey, we've got Joe on the sideline. Even if he's not scoring for us right now, he's going to score when it matters. And that's how the Bengals play. Also, again, we can't give enough props to this D coordinator, because I was thinking about this as well. Outside of us who kind of do this hardcore, right? We don't do it for a living, but we're hardcore into it. We care about the podcast a ton. Do you think the average fan can name more than 3 players on that Bengals defense?
I don't think so.
Because I was sitting there naming them off, and I'm like, I know Wilson because they mention him a lot because he's always tackling.
Yeah.
Hendrickson because he was a solid signing. I mean, good God, talk about outplaying your contract and just getting paid. Yeah. Hendrickson is he's just killing people back there. Yeah. And then you got Ogunjobi on the D line. Outside of that, and Jesse Bates, really, and Eli Apple because he's loud on Twitter. Who do you really know is on the team? Like, not a ton of people really recognize these names, but they play well as a unit, which shows great coaching. Like I said, Zach Taylor deserves some props too. He's been shit on for years.
Yes.
I actually, before the season, a freaking freezing cold take out here, had Zach Taylor getting fired and Brady becoming their head coach, the OC. They got fired. The wrong one got fired. I mean, freezing cold takes out there, but props to the Bengals as a whole. They're going to have an uphill battle, though, about this game we're talking about next, because that team they're going to play is going to be something else as well.
No doubt about it. And a phenomenal, fascinating storyline for this game. A lot of people forget Zach Taylor. He was the first guy, kind of the first one to come out of the prodigy, which is Sean McVay. I mean, he really was the first assistant to get hired from the Sean McVay, and then everything went crazy after that, and it looked bad at first, and now they're going to face off, which is a fascinating kind of storyline to go into it. But let's move into this next game. Rams 49ers. 49ers have a 17-7 lead. Rams come back in the fourth quarter. It ends on the most, as you said perfectly, Jimmy G way possible. The Rams showed up, and the Rams got it done defensively. Matt Stafford played his butt off. He threw some insane passes that even got dropped at times. And Cooper Kupp, the main thing, the storyline to me is the Rams stars played like stars. Aaron Donald played like a star. Odell Beckham played like a star. Cooper Kupp played like a star. The Rams stars played like stars when it mattered most. And Kyle Shanahan, once again, loved that guy. I would hire him. If I was an owner and I could pick any coach I want, he'd be top 3 to hire right now. And in some cases, I could maybe say he's number 1. He's that good of a coach. But man, it is irresponsible to go the last 12 minutes without getting the ball to Deebo Samuel. I mean, that is literally coaching malpractice. Deebo Samuel could be known as the most scary non-quarterback player on the field. And he was doing his thing, and he didn't get the ball at the end of the game. That is an issue. And once again, they blew a lead that could have got them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, honestly, I think this has a lot to say for the Rams and their chances moving forward, because they exercise their biggest demon. They really struggle with the 49ers. And that was on display again. That game, really, the way that some of the Rams stars were playing, the game shouldn't even been close. No. Jimmy actually played his best game he's played all postseason. But again, like I texted you, that's about the best way for Jimmy G to end his 49ers tenure, unless Ramsey had to just pick 6 him on the pick he dropped. Yeah. Like that would have been the only other way. The Rams really came out and played, their best ball, and they needed to. They needed every bit of it.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp's a baller, man.
God.
I mean, is anyone more open than him being double teamed? I mean, he's double teamed almost every play, and he just brackets it open. It's amazing. Odell played his best game since he was rocking the Giants gear easily.
Yep.
I mean, since he was house calling slants to win games, he played his best game. And Aaron Donald did something this game that Aaron Donald normally doesn't do. He called that team over, the whole defense, Jalen Ramsey included, brought all of them over there. I love seeing that. He rallied that whole defense around. And Aaron Donald doesn't talk a lot. He's not a talker. He goes out and does it. That was crazy on his part. And that defense played the way Aaron Donald was talking to him the rest of that game. They didn't really give it an inch after that. You got to give credit to him on defense after that, too, because the Niners just couldn't score. But you're right, man. Kyle's got to give the ball to Debo at that point. I mean, really, you got to even if he doesn't go anywhere, you got to hand it to Debo and do all that. You got to. He's your best player. I mean, even possibly over Trent Williams at this point, he's your best player. You got to give him the ball. I mean, Jimmy's best throw was a freaking out to Debo that he just housed it on a wide receiver screen. I mean, he threw the ball like 5 yards and Debo took it 41.
Like 40 yards.
Yeah. I mean, that was the best play of the day for the Niners, and it was all Debo Samuel at that point.
Yep.
These two teams match up very well together. I do think Shanahan had been in their head for a while, McVay's especially. Props to the Rams for coming out, but you mentioned him to start with. The biggest happiness you got to feel for is Matt Stafford coming out there, man. Making all the throws to get him there, making clutch time throw after throw. After dealing with what he dealt with the Lions, again, I'll mention again, I'm a fan of a team that's a dumpster fire most of the time. So I'm sure Lions fans love that. Even though Stafford isn't on your team anymore, you got to cheer for the guy. Yeah. You got to love him. Great playing.
Yeah. I think the point that you made is fascinating to me. They have to be feeling so loose, even though it's the Super Bowl and you're going to be nervous and stuff. But they exercised the biggest demon possible, bro. I mean, they exercised a demon that no matter what Jalen Ramsey and these guys say, it was in their head. You don't lose to your division rival that's right up north from you 6 times in a row and don't think about that over and over. And if they lost 7 times and that 7th time was to go to the Super Bowl, this was the biggest game for them, bro. And now because, again, it's the Super Bowl, so I don't want us to act like they're going to go out there and play, loosey-goosey, but they kind of can play Rams ball, man. Not only did you just beat the team that was your kryptonite, but you're also now not getting the Chiefs. And I know that sounds like disrespect to the Bengals, and it's not at all. The Bengals deserve to be here, and the Bengals could easily win this game. And we'll make our picks later on when we do a preview next week. But let's be honest now. They would much rather play the Bengals than the Chiefs. I mean, that's, again, it's no disrespect to the Bengals at all. But the Chiefs are the Chiefs. It's a whole different ballgame. If the Chiefs don't implode, they're winning that game who knows how much, you know? And do you disagree with that?
No, completely agree. Aaron Donald would much rather see the Bengals O-line.
O-line. Like, he's going to eat, bro. Von Miller could have another 2015 Super Bowl type moment. Like, if you're a betting man, I would look into putting some money on Aaron Donald to win MVP. He might be able to wreck that offensive line that much, you know? So the fact that things are kind of coming together for the Rams now, bro, it just feels like this might end up happening. And let me tell you this, and this is something we'll have to get into. If they do end up winning this Super Bowl, to me, what's going to be fascinating is, does this start to change the landscape of how teams operate? The Rams have been doing it different for a long time now. And if it finally equals a Super Bowl, do other teams start to jump on board? I mean, we're talking about a team here, Sean, that literally says F a first-round pick. I don't give a damn about a first-round pick. Like, a first-round pick? I'd rather have Jalen Ramsey. A first-round pick? I'd rather have Matt Stafford. A first-round pick? Take that shit. I'd rather have all these other players. Like, they are going against this huge concept of how a first-round pick is everything to these guys in this league. First-round pick matters more in this league than any other sports league out there. It's gold. These teams are trying to get 3-4 of them, and the Rams are giving away 5 or 6 of them. It will be fascinating to see if other teams try and go that route, a very sketchy route, very hard route, but it's working now for the Rams. And if they win it, they can officially say their way worked.
Yeah, that's going to be an amazing topic to cover too, because you're going to it right now. You kind of got to take it by case basis. Yeah. But if they win it like that, that is true. You got to look at it that way, because I can tell you who won the Jalen Ramsey trade. It was the Rams. Believe me. I mean, they took Jalen Ramsey and turned it into C.J. Henderson not on the team anymore. Caleb Von Chase on 2 sacks in his whole career. And I'm blanking on the 4th right now, but it's not super productive either. So they took that and ran with it, right? So they won that trade.
No
but
doubt.
Then we're also going to get to sneak around and see that, well, the Jets now have the Seahawks like top 10 pick with that Jamal Adams trade, and we're going to see stuff like that. So it's going to be very fun to deep dive that as a topic one day coming forward with that, because that's where it all comes at.
Yeah.
I think you're going to start seeing it a lot more. I think you're going to see a lot of these teams that have a quarterback, especially a young one, that feel pretty confident and look at the draft outwardly that like, hey, we're not going to need the strongest position in this draft. Let's just trade away our draft pick for a position of need that we're not going to be able to get in the draft.
Yeah.
I think you're going to start seeing that more often. I think me and you will probably have the conversation at some point, but I think you've asked me this before, either on air or off. Would you trade the number 1 overall pick for Devontae Adams if he got tagged? I would, in a heartbeat.
I would.
Do you think there's any player in the draft that would be better than Devontae Adams right now? No. But that's because you have Trevor at quarterback. So I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis. I'm super excited to talk that, because if the Rams win it, I think a lot of other teams are going to start being aggressive like that. Les Snead has definitely came out and said that's the way he wants to roll. McVay seems to be the type that wants to already work with people that are already established and not. But he does develop his late round picks well too. That's something that you can't forget about this whole Rams thing. They might be trading these first and seconds everywhere, but they're late round picks. Van Jefferson, a lot of these offensive linemen, they develop about as good as anyone in the league. So if you have faith in your late round draft pick development, I feel like trading those first few. I mean, I bet Minnesota with Rick Spielman all these years, they had so many good late round gems. I bet a lot of them probably wish that they had traded first round picks, because that was really where any of his misses ever occurred. So that's the kind of thing you're going to have to look at going forward on building a team.
That's the key to the whole thing there. You got to be able to hit on your late round picks to be able to make this successful and developed in the right way. It's going to be phenomenal. Look, this has been, to me, the best playoffs we've had in a long, long time. I mean, every weekend has lived up to the billing. It's been heartbreak. It's been emotions. It's been everything. It's been incredible. And now we have the teams that deserve to be here, and the Bengals and the Rams. And it's different, Sean. That's the great thing, man. It's not Brady. It's not Mahomes. It's not the Chiefs. It's not the Patriots. It's different. Like, this is a completely different Super Bowl. And I think people are enjoying this. I think people are kind of happy about that. You know, they're excited to get something new out there. And that's what's going to happen. I do just think we need to touch real quick on the Niners. And again, we're going to get all into this in the offseason, but obviously that was Jimmy G's last game. I want to ask you this. Are you concerned with kind of this trend we're seeing about Kyle Shanahan, man? Look, I mean, as a Falcons fan, I don't want to put all this on him, but he kind of lost the Falcons a Super Bowl. Again, I don't want to put it like all on him, because I do put blame on Dan Quinn and Matt Ryan for not turning around or saying, like let's run the ball. Like, Matt Ryan, you're a veteran. Dan Quinn, you're the head coach. You can do that. But he messed up big time. Super Bowl, he messed up big time. I mean, we are seeing blown leads. Now, I think the Rams had a lot more to do with this than just Kyle Shanahan's mistake. Like you said, they balled out. But is that something you're kind of getting a little worried about?
I'm not going to lie, I kind of am, but I also find it very befuddling, I guess would be a good word.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of weird that literally the best offensive coordinator at designing run plays can't run the ball to ice games?
Fascinating.
It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
It's crazy.
I mean, I mean, some people are probably going to credit McDaniel a lot for the run game stuff because he run game schemes with Shanahan. I mean, Shanahan taught McDaniel everything he knows. Shanahan's a run first OC. That's what he does. Even when Matt Ryan was putting up huge numbers, Freeman in the backfield was a big time part of that.
His
Like
best
nobody
year he
really
ever had.
knows.
Freeman's best year.
And then he went to San Francisco. In the Super Bowl, he was running Mostert and all them.
Yeah.
And then in this year, he's been running Elijah Mitchell and Debo. And it's weird, man. These two blown leads with the Niners are very strange because they have the running backs, they have the O-line to do it, and they're up on these quarterbacks that can throw prolific games. But yet for some reason, he's putting it in the hands of Jimmy G at the end, which I think he went 3 for 9 in the Super Bowl and 3 for 11 in this one, or vice versa. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
You can't really be putting it in the hands of Jimmy G unless you have to once you're up double digits. Like, you got to run the ball. You know, I mean, and they're definitely expecting run, but he never has an issue running the ball to start with. I do think that's a bit concerning for him. I do want to see what he does with Trey Lance because I think he probably thinks Trey Lance can be his Josh Allen, his Mahomes type quarterback, and that in these situations, he would just scramble for the first down if he needed to, or either he's going to make the big play. So I would like to see him with a quarterback of that caliber if they can develop him into that. But that is a little concerning for me, especially since he's the best run game play caller basically in the league.
I agree. And the way you put that was fascinating. It's such a great point. It's weird. It makes absolutely zero sense. And there's going to be a lot of change with that team now. So we'll see. Mike McDaniels might be on the way to Miami. Jimmy G's definitely going to be out. Let's see if Trey Lance is ready to take that step forward and see what happens from there. Go ahead.
So two things on that. Do you don't you? I know I find that weird. I was going to say, you would think Andy Reid's the one blowing leads since he's the one that throws all the time, for one. But two, where do you think Jimmy G might end up? Your preliminary thoughts. We'll talk about this a lot as the offseason goes on because he's going to go. But your first guess, what team do you think he ends up on?
My first guess, like if I had to say this is I only get one pick, I think he goes to Washington.
Oh, Washington. Okay. That's a solid choice. I think Washington could definitely do that. I'm kind of leaning maybe Pittsburgh. That's kind of where I'm leaning on that.
I could see that.
Because I think Pittsburgh might get hung in there. Like, I think Washington and Pittsburgh are the two in the draft you got to watch for trading up, especially where they're at. Like trading up a little bit to get a quarterback. But I think if they don't end up with that, they might just go the Jimmy G route. I also think the Broncos are interesting if they don't go for Rodgers. That's another interesting one because they've got to upgrade a quarterback.
I also think the Bucs are interesting. I think
that's one. I saw that thrown around. I just don't think that happens. I mean, Aaron's going to want somebody that throws the ball down.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think that the reason why I say Washington, and I feel like no one's talking about Washington, I don't think Ron Rivera wants to do the whole – especially not this year. I honestly don't think Pittsburgh. I think both Pittsburgh and Washington are very, very similar. Really good defense. They want to win now. Especially Washington, very bad division kind of still. I think both of them are going to look to go after Jimmy G or some quarterback heavily. And I just think Washington's not getting thrown around enough. And my other question was, what do you think he's going to cost? Do you think he'll cost a first?
See, that's so hard because honestly, if you look at him play, I wouldn't give more than a second for him.
I wouldn't.
But
either.
At the same time, the draft is so weak this year, and there's like 9 or 10 teams that need a quarterback. I mean, we didn't even talk about the New Orleans Saints, the Panthers. 3 in your division, all 3 need quarterbacks at this point. So, I mean, we didn't even talk about those teams that need a quarterback. He's going to go for someone. I'm wondering if the price is going to get driven up to a first-round pick because of all that. If I'm Washington, I would have a hard time parting with 11 for Jimmy G, though. Let's just be real here.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. I would not be giving up my number 11 pick for Jimmy G. I would give up a second for him, though. I would be willing to give up a second. I think a second
is right where you would think. But like I said, it's going to be 9, 10 teams that need a quarterback, and it's just curious who's going to get it.
No doubt about it. This is the Money Down Pod. That is Sean White. I'm Kayvon Zombie. Let's move on here to some breaking news, really, over the last couple hours in the NFL. Just what is going on? This is a massive report coming out of the NFL, and that is that Brian Flores is suing the NFL as well as it's kind of odd because he's suing the NFL, but he's also suing like 3 teams as well. He's suing the Broncos, the Giants, and the what was the last one? There's one I have it right here. 1 second. He's suing the NFL and he's suing the Broncos, the Giants, and the Dolphins. No, he's not suing the Dolphins. I can't find it. I don't know where the other one is. But he's suing 3 teams. It's the Broncos and the Giants for sure, and he's also suing the NFL, which is fascinating. The reason why he's suing them is because he believes that alleged racism is happening in these hiring process, and he doesn't think that he and other candidates are getting a fair shot because of them being an African American or them being black or whatever the reason is. That is why. And Sean, the reason why this is so fascinating is, and you have a really good point about it, it's more that came out than just that. Also, there's reports that Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, was paying or willing to pay Brian Flores $100,000 a game to tank for that year when it was the Joe Burrow, Tua, and Herbert draft. He was giving him $100,000 a game to lose, ladies and gentlemen. I tweeted this out. I said, that is as close to fixing a game without actually fixing the game. I mean, like, you are literally paying someone to lose a game. If Brian Flores went along with that, that is what you would call fixing a football game, which is absurd. I mean, that is absolutely absurd. So this is a really big report coming out in the NFL. What are your thoughts on it?
Yes, I think there's 3 real keen angles we need to explore on this. And the biggest bombshell is what you just mentioned. It's the paying someone to lose games part, which he obviously didn't do. He's coming out there on the Dolphins saying he didn't do that, and that's a reason he got fired, is one of his things.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that. That's my big
old the Dolphins. So he's suing the Dolphins, the Broncos, and the Giants.
Yeah. So that's the big overarching point that I'm going to get to. The other 2 are these. We kind of all knew that people were shamming the Rooney Rule at this point. Let's be real. There's 1 black head coach active right now. Yeah. And the way some of these coaching searches are going, there's like 4 or 5 jobs left. Unless an 11th hour deal happens with Leftwich and the Jags, it looks like none of them are going to be black head coaches. That's an issue the league is going to have to deal with. And it's pretty sad, a sad state, really, to be honest. But when it comes to the Rooney Rule, it's going to be very hard to enforce this and really prove that it was just not a legitimate interview or anything like that. It's going to be very hard to get around that whole issue in a court of law, in my opinion, because it's kind of a he said type thing. You know, it's like, okay, well, you didn't really take me seriously. And at the same time, I know the Raiders had an issue when they hired Gruden on this. They basically interviewed T. Martin, and T. Martin knew he wasn't going to get a head coaching job. He hasn't even really been a coordinator like that. No. And they came down and fined the Raiders. But in Mark Davis's defense, he's doing that as a procedure, but he's going to hire Gruden straight up. So it's kind of hard to really go against some of these teams that do it lackadaisically like that when they already have a candidate in mind. Mm-hmm. The real problem is they need to be more serious about keeping the black coaches longer. That's where I think he has the most merit. They do fire these black coaches a lot earlier sometimes than they do the white coaches. And I think that's really the angle that we need to look at when it comes to the race issues, where Flores probably shouldn't have been fired to start with. Let's be real. And where these other coaches get shorter leashes, that's really the angle you need to look at, not the Rooney Rule. Because to be honest, these GMs and these owners are going to hire the people they know and the people they like to start with, and that's just how it's going to be, no matter what rules you have in place. The second part and the biggest issue, overarching, is the $100,000 a game, because you can't be fixing games. That's what the NBA ran into with the Donaghy investigation that really put a black cloud over them. Yeah. And especially in the NFL, where so much money and so much of this viewership is coming in on sports gambling, you can't fix games that way because Vegas is not going to be a part of that, and you can't deal with it from a consumer base. That's the big issue you got to worry about. He wanted to tank for Tua, and it's funny, they ended up with Tua anyway. Like, let's be real, the owner wanted Tua this whole time. That's why he was trying to tank in 19 then, and he ended up with him to start with. So really, it all worked out in a way. But you got to really go hard at Stephen Ross for this. And I don't mean just a fine. I mean, he's got to be came down at hard if they can prove this. And that's what I'm going to be looking for in this investigation, because the NFL is going to throw out that they don't have a race issue and all that. And like I said, that part's going to be hard to prove. But if you can prove that he offered $100K to fix this game and lose, then hey, you got to go after Stephen Ross. I don't think he should be an owner anymore, really, if that's the case.
I completely agree. So I want to make this point, and Sean said it perfectly, but just for those out there, because these days so many things can get misconstrued. Sean is saying, he's not saying that it's not important what's going on with the mishiring of African Americans by saying that this $100,000 part is the biggest part. He's just saying this has been happening, unfortunately. And he's right. Like, this has been happening, and it sucks that it's been happening.
And it needs to change. That part does. That is true. Let me say that. It does need to change. Like, this needs to be addressed. I'm just saying that that's not the big bombshell that came out of this. We all knew that was happening before, like you were saying. Just
exactly, for sure. And that's the big point here. We knew this was happening. And I want to just really quickly say, do you know what type of courage it takes for a man who is still very young in Brian Flores, who is really, really good at his job and really, really good at a job that's, yes, very stressful, but a job that so many people in this world would love to have, which is be a really good football coach. And he is putting that in jeopardy, guys. He is putting that in jeopardy by doing this. I mean, you're suing the NFL. Who's going to hire you? Like, you're putting your career that you're very good at on the line by making this move. And it just, you've got to applaud someone like that, because that takes so much courage. And there's a reason why that this hasn't come out before, because a lot of people, and I understand, you don't want to lose your chance to make money and do what you love and provide for your family. That's why people don't come out with this. And Brian Flores had enough of it, and he's come out with it. And it's just, we need to talk about that, because that's a big deal. It takes a lot of courage, and good on Brian Flores. Now, with that being said, Sean's 100% right. The fact that we have an NFL owner literally paying a coach to lose football games is downright it's just wrong, and it's so bad for the league, bro. It is so, what you said with the amount of money being gambled nowadays on these games. Do you know how much money that, like, if that really was happening, which we know Brian Flores wasn't doing that, but if it was coming down to that point, or the fact that there was even a threat of willing for that to happen, it's to the point where he should lose his team if that's really what he was doing. And then there's also this report, I don't know if you saw this, that he took Brian Flores out on a yacht for lunch, and had him tried to have him, Brian Flores left once he found out what was going on, had him meet with a quarterback, a prominent quarterback at the time that was not for the Dolphins, to talk him into, okay, getting on board that we're going to trade for him and all this stuff. We all assume it's probably Deshaun Watson. The report was that this happened in 2019. So I'd have to look at the dates and see, did Deshaun already start hating Houston at that point, or what?
I believe that lines up if you want to make that decision. But again, that also happens too. Nobody ever finds out about it, but yeah,
it does happen. But and supposedly Brian Flores, though, walked away. He didn't deal with it, but Ross was pretty much forcing Flores to sit down, talk to this quarterback, and tell him you want him. Like, I get it. I mean, you want to win if you're an owner, but this is too far, man. All of this is so wrong, and I really hope the league steps up and actually does something about this for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I agree. I do hope they at least take a serious investigation into this, and not just kind of do what they can to PR spin everything. I do hope they legitimately look into it. And I'm going to make this point, and I know it's controversial, so I'm going to be real clear about what I'm saying here. What Kaepernick did and Flores did is a little bit different.
Yes.
Kaepernick definitely deserved to be in the league when he started his protest, But Kaepernick was a borderline starter at that point. And I know that's like the whole, oh, you're outing yourself like this and that, like as this. No, he truly was a borderline starter at that point. He did not play well those last few years. This takes a whole new level of courage because Flores is one of the top coaches in the league. Like, he should be a coach in the league.
Yes.
He's one of the best head coaches out there. And to come out and put your name on you're suing the NFL. Like, he was up for the Texans job. He's not up for the Texans job anymore if you're suing the league. Like, that's not happening. He was interviewing with the Vikings and everything. That's courageous on his part, and it should be respected because what Kaepernick did should be respected as well. He lost his opportunity to play in the league anymore, but the level of which they were, their quality at the position they were doing, whether a head coach or quarterback, completely different level. What Flores is also alluding to, having that quarterback allegedly out there on the yacht and everything, that happens. It usually just happens back deal with agents.
It does.
People don't really understand. If you watch the Jags coach search, I haven't said anything really about it because of all the rumors flying, but it's with everyone. If you see all this stuff, it's like Game of Thrones in these front offices, man. This stuff is really cutthroat and really shady behind the scenes, which is like that in all these billion-dollar companies anyway. Yes. We're just getting a little tiny piece of it up to the forefront into the media because of what Brian Flores did. That's what's crazy about it, and I really hope the league looks into this because I don't think they're going to be able to blackball him at this point. He's too good at his job to have any excuse why he's not being hired other than being blackballed. So this is going to really come to a head at some point. And that's what I'm excited for because this can really spark some change. I'm hoping it sparks some change in at least putting them to the same standard that other coaches have. Because like I said before, the issue is black head coaches get fired a lot quicker than a lot of white head coaches are. I mean, I'm looking at Trent Baalke having a GM job still, and he's like in no way qualified for it, where you see a lot of other minority front office candidates get fired for a lot less. I think that's a real push for change that needs to happen, is that they're set to the same standard as the white front office and coaching people are. That's what really needs to be looked into and changed, in my opinion, when it comes to the race side of this. Again, like we were saying, the $100,000, that's just illegal. Like, you got to watch that. That's just, like that gets you in hot water no matter what. Like, that's just straight up on a different level of legality. Issue, and Stephen Ross in some hot water on that for sure if that gets proven right.
He is in big trouble if that gets proven right. But
I want you to make your Belichick point. That was so good what you said to start with.
Okay, yeah. So this is a little theory I have with the Belichick thing. And listen, man, Belichick is a very smart man, okay? And we all saw the text of him coming out and texting, thinking it was Dable, not Flores. And listen, that could happen. I mean, I've texted people before missing it up. It could happen. But Belichick is so smart. The cynical side of me wants to kind of think that, Belichick still has some hard feelings towards the Giants and their organization and all that stuff. I would not be shocked one bit if Belichick saw these texts from Flores, saw that he was getting interviewed on Thursday and knew, but I just heard that Dable's going to get the job. Well, let me go along with this and really prove to Flores that they're using you. They're using you to just get their interview in. I mean, if Belichick knew that Dable already had the job and also knew that Flores was still getting interviewed, add the two things up there. It tells you that they're just interviewing Flores just so that they can say they interviewed a black coach. And Belichick is very smart. He's a smart guy. Would not be shocked one bit if maybe he actually did know who he was texting and kind of left it at that.
I love that theory. I love that theory for one. That would be such Belichick stuff to do too, because that's Belichick looking out for his guy as well at that point. Because I could see that happening again. Kind of to touch on the Rooney Rule right quick. The Rooney Rule, like I said, they interviewed T. Martin before the Gruden thing, and the NFL really came down on it. So now you have to interview 2 minority candidates for any front office job, GM equivalent, and any head coaching job, any coordinator job. You have to interview 2 minority candidates. Well, again, even in getting a job in real life, it's all about who you know and your experience, but mostly who you know. Like, you get hired on because you know somebody and have an in. That's how these NFL jobs go, too. That's why it's dominated so much by predominantly white people, because right now at this point, they just bring them in.
Yep.
I mean, to be honest, Ryan Poles brought in Eberflus because they have a relationship. Like,
That's
you see
true.
all this happening. The thing is, after the T. Martin claim happened, you kind of had to start as an owner interviewing legitimately black candidates
Yes.
then. And what Flores is upset about is he's one of the most legit candidates out there, and I'm sure he feels like he's being used to satisfy this Rooney Rule,
Exactly.
which is most likely the case, except for maybe in Houston and maybe in Minnesota's case. So I see where he's coming from on that. Something's got to give with how the rule is executed, and I'm not really – I haven't really sat down and thought of the best solution for that. But something's got to give with this because you can't keep putting on facade interviews, but you also do have to give them the avenue to be interviewed. So you're kind of at a rock and a hard place. And that's something that I would like to ask some people in the comments. Could you give us a good way that you would think we could get more black head coaches hired? Obviously, they shouldn't be held to a different standard, and that would keep them from getting fired as much as they are. But is there a good interview process, good avenue, other than just hire them? Like, obviously. But is there a good interview process that is more fair to more fairly treat minority candidates out there? Because the Rooney Rule definitely does have some flaws for all the good it has done.
No, that's a great question. And leave your comments. Let us know. Reach us. Tell us on Twitter @MoneyDownPod. It's a fascinating question, and it's hard. It is a hard thing. But that's why you're the NFL. You're a billion-dollar business. You can figure it out. And I bet there's some good people out there listening that probably have some really good ideas on that too, because it is interesting. Because at the end of the day, you still want your football coach, I mean, your football team to hire the most qualified guy. So sometimes you say, well, this white guy actually is the most qualified guy. But in this instance, I think it's not even an argument that the most qualified and probably most deserved coach on the market in this hiring cycle was Brian Flores.
I'd see that's perfectly straightforward. I would argue that the two most qualified coaches out there are Doug Peterson and Flores.
Agreed.
And Peterson only gets the edge on a Super Bowl. But Flores, what he did the last 3 years with a terrible situation, definitely deserved to be hired again. And honestly, I thought it was going to be him being picky not to get hired. I didn't think it was going to be an issue with him actually getting hired, to be honest.
Same. But it makes total sense of why he's mad. I mean, think about it. When he got fired, everything that was going around was he got fired. He's really good at his job, but you know what? He's hard to work with.
Yeah, didn't agree with the GM and the owner.
He disagreed. He's got hard to work with. He's got a bad attitude. So it was all this like, oh, he's really good, but he has these issues, and that's what he's saying. He's pissed about. No, I didn't have these issues. They're just putting these things out there about me because I was in a situation that I didn't even want to be in the first place, with them bribing him to lose games and all that stuff. Of course, he's going to have an attitude when your freaking owner is trying to give you money to lose games. He was the most qualified, along with, like you said, Doug Peterson. And I genuinely was shocked that he didn't get a job at this point. And maybe he was going to get one with the Texans or the Saints. He's not going to now, but I thought he would have already had one locked up. I really did. And he clearly did too, with the way he was saying, I think I really have a chance. Like, imagine that feeling, Sean, knowing, like, imagine if I texted you saying, or you texted me saying, congrats, bro, job. And I said, oh, I'm interviewing on Thursday. I really think I got a chance at this, bro. Like, I really do. And then you text me back saying, oh, I thought they already hired Brian Dable. Like, that's so demoralizing, bro, thinking you're about to go into this interview for a job that you love, but they already are trying or about to hire someone else, and you're just kind of there as a show person. That sucks. Like, that's terrible. It's messed up, and it's got to change. And I hope things work out where it does change, and I also hope that Flores gets back in the league. And I think what you said is the biggest point. I don't know how they blackball him. One, he's way too good of a coach. And two, I think he's going to have a lot of people on his side, bro. I think he's going to a lot. And I think Belichick might even bring him back this year. I can see him maybe coaching this year.
Yeah, and this is another difference too. Whether you, like I said, whether you supported or didn't the whole Kaepernick thing, there was definitely a divisive thing with how he protested it. Like whether you're for or against it, it was divisive either way. Nothing's divisive about this. This is just a straight up lawsuit. So you can't really blackball the man at this point. Like, we're going to really see how this works out whether he gets a job in the future, because he rightfully deserves one, and he's done nothing divisive in the situation either. There's really no argument against it, to be honest. There's none, like, at all.
Great point.
So that's where we're going to be at. Like I said, leave your comments. Tell us if there's any like feeling you have of how we can fix the situation and how the NFL should go to fix the situation, because I'd love to hear them. I love to think about things critically like that. I know Kayvon does as well. So we'd love to hear those thoughts. So make sure you put them out there in the comments so we can reply and talk about it some more, because this is going to be an ongoing story and ongoing situation as the offseason rolls through.
No doubt about it. And great conversation here. Really enjoyed this one. Unfortunate that we had to have it, but hopefully it is going to lead to some positive and better things on the other side. That is it for this episode of the Money Down Pod. We have our Super Bowl matchup, Cincinnati and Los Angeles, meeting up in SoFi in 2 weeks. And you better know that all of that discussion will be here on the Money Down Pod, leading you up to the game. Tune in. We will also be having our draft episode, our next one tomorrow, come out Thursday, on our quarterbacks. It'll be our first episode on our quarterbacks this year, our top quarterbacks. It is a very interesting, you could say, draft class for quarterbacks, and we'll be dissecting it. There's a lot of teams out there that need quarterbacks. We'll see where we feel like some of these guys are going to go. We'll give you our top 5, 6, 7, 8, and we'll break it down from there. So that is Sean White. I am Kayvon Izami. Follow us on Twitter at MoneyDownPod. Please like, subscribe, review. It means the world to us. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.